What's up, guys? Zach Joachim here with the Richmond Times-Dispatch. I'm bringing back On the Horn with Zach Joachim this season after VCU games. And 84-65, VCU opens its 2024-25 season with a victory over Bellarmine that was not necessarily straightforward. Bellarmine fought back a bunch of times after VCU kept kind of stretching out the lead to double digits. And then Bellarmine would find some flow offensively. They certainly moved the ball around from side to side. Ryan Odom talked about that in the post-game press conference, how that challenged VCU tonight. Knights finished 26 of 56 from the floor, and really just fought back every time VCU tried to. My friend Jacob is walking. Jacob, say hey. Jacob, say hey. What's up, man?
What's going on, everybody? Pat Mahomes helped off the field, non-contact injury, leg injury.
That's concerning. We got a Pat Mahomes injury update from Jacob there. Jacob is a very good friend of mine, and we went to high school together at Morey in Norfolk, and he's now working with the stadium crew at VCU, which is very cool. So we get to say hey to him before tip-off for every game. Him and his wonderful wife Megan got married recently, so everyone wish Jacob and Megan a happy marriage. But getting back to the game, VCU 15 of 29 from three-point range, 20 assists. I think that's the story, how good VCU was offensively. Max Scholger led the way, 19 points. Joe Bamasiel, 18 points. Joe was 8 of 14 from the floor. Max was 6 of 6 from the floor. A wonderfully efficient game for him. 4 of 4 from beyond the arc. The only things he missed was free throws. He missed 2 free throws, 3 of 5 from the line. Scholger, 5 assists as well. Jack Clark, 11 points, 9 rebounds. Philip Russell, 16 points, 4 assists, 3 steals. Team high 16 over plus minus. And I think I want to touch on Phil for a little bit here, because that's been a big part of the narrative going into this season, right? Is his mentality and what it adds to this group. The term "he's a dog" is so overused in today's sports vernacular, but there's no better way to describe Philip Russell. Ryan Odom has said it. I think Joe a couple weeks ago, or a week ago in the press conference after the exhibition, said that Phil adds a little bit of spice that we didn't have last year. I think that's also an accurate descriptor. He is a competitor on multiple occasions tonight. On this sideline right behind me here, after he would make a play defensively, he would be interacting with the crowd and hyping everyone up. Phil was asked about the Siegel Center atmosphere after this game, and he said, I wish I'd played here all 4 years, because he loves it, and this fan base obviously loves him early on here. And he made a big impact tonight. Like I said, 16 points for him, 5 of 10 from the floor. Had a little bit of foul trouble, so he sat a good bit of that first half, but still made a huge impact on this game in 22 minutes and 49 seconds of action. Just the mentality that VCU needed, that I think this group needed, that ultra competitor that's going to get this place fired up. I think him and the Siegel Center are going to develop a special relationship as the season goes on, and you could see it start early on tonight. There was a sequence there that in the second half that I thought was really the knockout blow, because like I said earlier, Bellarmine, credit to them, man. They played good basketball tonight on the offensive end, and just kept fighting back and cut it to 45-40, I think, early in the second half. And you had a little bit of nervous energy in here, right? I mean, this is a team that opened last season with a loss to McNeese State, and McNeese State ended up being a very good team last year. Bellarmine certainly not the same type of challenge coming in here tonight, but I think there was a little bit of nervous energy when they cut it to 45-40 there in the second half. And then shortly after that, VCU had a knockout blow. I think there was a Scholger 3 in there. There was a Russell 3 in there. And then Bamasiel had back-to-back plays. And look at the video I posted on Twitter, and I'll upload to the Times-Dispatch website tonight, of Joe describing that sequence, because it was wonderfully Joe Bamasiel in only the way that he can, describing those couple of dunks. 2 different baseline drives, and in between, Russell drew a charge on this end of the floor down here, and was getting the crowd hyped up. And I think that stretched the lead out to like 16, 17 at that point. And then VCU just kind of was able to keep Bellarmine at arm's reach the rest of the night. With the defensive intensity in that second half, they didn't necessarily have in the first. I think that's how Bellarmine was able to stay in the game, is they played really well offensively in that first half. What was the score? 45-38 at halftime, I think. And Coach Odom said, VCU was just kind of making the 50-50 plays, diving on the floor. Joe dove on the floor on that sideline over there very early in the game that I think kind of set the tone. Like I said, Phil's mentality was a big part of that, but they played with desperation early on here against a team that they're obviously supposed to beat. Speaking of which, how does Vegas always know? The line was 20.5. for this game. VCU won by 19. So Vegas always knows somehow. But VCU was making those 50-50 plays, playing with desperation early on that Coach Odom said they didn't necessarily come out of the gates with last year, and there was that sense of urgency immediately in this game. I think that's something that the fans here appreciated. This place got really loud in the second half in a sold-out opener. Other big contributions tonight. Jack Clark, I think I said his line, 11 points, 9 rebounds. That's going to be a big narrative out of this game because Clark, ended up playing a lot at the 5. Or you could say it was Clark at the 5 or Michael Bell at the 5. But Clark and Bell were on the floor together as the 2 forwards for a lot of that second half. And that's a lineup coming into the year that a lot of VCU fans were hoping to see on a consistent basis with 3 guards out there along with Bell and Clark. In a kind of small ball configuration for a team that wants to shoot a lot of threes. And that certainly came to fruition today, right? Clark, 30 minutes and 38 seconds. Christian Furman played 26:07. His time was a little limited only because he got sick in the first half and threw up in a trash can, which Coach Odom referenced in the post-game press conference. That's just happened for Firm times before. I think it happened one game in the A-10 tournament last year in Brooklyn. I think he's not sick or anything. I think he just gets queasy and worked up sometimes, especially when the atmosphere, is big like this. And so that's why Firm sat for a little bit in the first half there. But Clark and Bell playing at the forward positions is really when this team played its best basketball tonight, I think. Everyone praised Michael Bell in the post-game presser. 10 rebounds, 6 points, 2 turnovers, a block. And he was just up 13 over plus minus. Michael Bell was just doing all the little things like he did last year. He grew a half inch in the offseason. He added about 10 pounds, and he looks ready to kind of play more down low a little bit, right? Like he was already a very physically mature player when he came in as a freshman. And his physicality, his tenacity is why he got so many minutes last year. The offensive skill set is still coming along. I think the outside jump shot looks a little better. He's worked on that a lot in the offseason. But I want him, I think, and Coach Odom wants him and this team wants him putting his head down, being physical, getting to the rack, being more assertive offensively, and I think that part of his game is coming around. But man, the defense and rebounding have just always been there, and they were absolutely here tonight. He played some huge minutes for this team, 20-53 for him. And when VCU really stretched out that lead in the second half, it was with Clark and Bell on the floor, along with Russell, Shulga, Bamacil, and at many times Brandon Jennings and Terrence Hill too. I haven't touched on the Zeb Jackson news. That's in the story that I wrote tonight with live updates from the game. I'll have a takeaways story to post tomorrow morning and go and print in the paper on Wednesday. Zeb Jackson is out with a fractured 4th metacarpal. I had to Google the difference between metatarsal and metacarpal earlier. Chris Kowalczyk and I were going back and forth on that front. Metatarsals are in your foot and metacarpals are in your hands. I'm not a medical expert, had to Google that. But it's the 4th metacarpal, which I believe is the ring finger on his left hand. It's that bone, like right above where your fingers are, which can obviously be a very fragile place. It happened in practice on Friday, which sucks. I mean, Zeb is, a class act of a human being. This program loves him. This fan base loves him. That couldn't have happened to a better guy. That sucks. He was just coming back from a quad injury that had kept him out early in exhibitions here, came right back to practice, and on Friday suffered that injury, had surgery today. The timetable most of the time is 4 to 6 weeks for an injury like that. I think it's the same one that Ace Baldwin had a couple of years ago for VCU. Ace ended up coming back, I think, after 2 weeks. He hit the front end of that timetable. And so I don't think it's uncommon for, depending on how your body heals, Zeb had surgery today. Perhaps he could be back sooner. The big blow timetable-wise, you're obviously not going to have him against Boston College on Friday. I think the outside hope right now is could he be back for Charleston in the Charleston Classic, which is an enormous tournament for this team in terms of building an at-large NCAA resume. That's the big question. We'll see. I think the earliest he could be back is 2 weeks, which would get him back for Charleston. Normal timetable is 4 to 6 weeks for an injury like that. So I think the most likely scenario is we don't see Zeb until December and toward the end of non-conference play for this team. You got a lot of guard depth, and that's being tested. So to get back to the rotations there in the second half, Terrence Hill and Brandon Jennings, 2 freshmen, man, they played some key minutes tonight. Hill, 11-16, 5 points, 2 turnovers, 1 steal, 1 assist. And Brandon Jennings didn't score, man. He had one over on this basket down here that went in and out. Coach Odom said he thought he got fouled. I thought Brandon May got fouled on that play too. Would have been nice to see him get his first points in a VCU uniform in his first action, but he played 15-24, and even though he didn't score, man, he affected the game. He's such a tenacious on-ball defender. Love the contrast between him and Terrence. Terrence is kind of the, more ball-dominant offensive guard. Not that he's not a good defender, because he is too, but Brandon is just kind of that tenacious, long, lanky defender who can really affect opposing guards on the perimeter. And he showed that tonight, man. Had 4 fouls. He had some foul trouble in the exhibition too. So I think they called some ticky-tack stuff on the perimeter tonight, but that was certainly both ways. I think Max Scholga, who's so good at drawing fouls, drew about 4 or 5 of those on the perimeter tonight. Just being able to get his body in the right position and draw contact. Bellarmine got VCU into the bonus early on in the first half and in the second half as well, and that certainly helped VCU create separation in this game. But man, Brandon Jennings, I'm looking at his stat line right now, 2 blocks. And so he certainly showed off the defensive prowess. 1 steal, 8 over plus minus. The fact that he didn't score, the stat line does not do justice to the impact that Brandon Jennings had on this game, because he played some really good minutes in his first minutes for his hometown program, which is awesome. Him and Fats Billups get big cheers when they come on the floor. And I got to touch on Fats, because that's what everyone wanted us to ask about in the post-game press conference. Fats Billups only played 3:39 tonight, but he had 5 points. Had a 3, I think, down on this in this corner here. He loves the corner threes on a catch and shoot. And then had a great up fake out on the wing too to lose his defender, and drove to the cup. And I want to see more of that from him this year, because he got really hot shooting it from outside last year, and he's certainly a good outside shooter. But I think sometimes he can fall in love with the 3 ball, and when he was at Verina, man, I saw a guy that can put the ball on the floor and get to the cup all the time and can finish through contact, can finish in traffic. So I want him to be more aggressive about that this year. So I loved it when after he hit the 3, he used the up fake, lost his defender, drove to the cup, drew contact, and hit 2 free throws. So Fats Billups, 5 points in only 3 minutes and 39 seconds. My guess for why he didn't play more would be that the same thing that kept him off the floor a lot last year. It seems to me that Coach Odom just wants something more in Fats's maturation on the defensive side. Bellarmine moves the ball from side to side a lot. They make you chase. They make you stay on your assignments. I was impressed with how their offense runs tonight, with a limited amount of elite skill on that team. Although I got to say, Desmond McKinney, 15 points for them, was really good tonight. Ben Johnson, 15 points as well. They had a couple guys who had some really good games on the offensive side of the floor. But I think that just Coach Odom doesn't have the confidence that he needs to have in Fats on the defensive end to play him more, because Fats played great offensively in the very limited time that he had tonight. I think it was all in the first half, and then he didn't see the floor again. So you've got Fats as a true, a sophomore playing 3:39, and Hill and Jennings as true freshmen. They're obviously guards, and Fats is a wing, but they got 3, 4, 5 times as many minutes as Fats did tonight. So there's something that Coach Odom sees in those freshmen in terms of their readiness to contribute that he needs more of in Fats. And I really think that's on the defensive end, and specifically against Bellarmine. I think Coach Odom thought that it wasn't a great matchup for Fats. And so that's why he didn't play more. Luke Bamboye played sparingly in that first half, 2 minutes and 22 seconds. He had a block, certainly showed off his athleticism and defensive prowess. That's what I've heard a lot about him, that he's really good at timing up those blocks, and he showed that off once. He'll play more as the season goes on, but I think that right now, Firm is going to continue to start. But Coach Odom and everyone around this program, I think would probably agree that their best configuration tonight was Clark and Bell at the forward spots with 3 guards around him. And Coach Odom said in the post-game press conference, we can even go, 5 out, essentially, and play Clark or Bell at the 5 with 4 guards around them, which when Zeb Jackson comes back, I think we could see a lot of that because Jackson, Russell, Scholga, and Bamasiel, it's tough to take any of them off the floor. Scholga 34-33 tonight. Great to see him totally healthy, right? He played so much early last year, and VCU asked so much of him carrying this team from an offensive standpoint last year when he was fighting a sports hernia all year. That happened in Greece last summer. So Max looks healthy to me. Max looks improved on the defensive end. And for this team to go where it wants to go, which is to win this conference and get to the NCAA tournament this year, they're going to need Max Scholga at 100% throughout the season. And so it's great to see him healthy. VCU 84, Bellarmine 65. A really good opening to the season. I think, again, Knights fought back in the first half, impressed with them offensively. but you can't make many gripes about a 19-point win at home and what was a great atmosphere here at the Siegel Center. So I will be in Annapolis on Friday, where VCU plays Boston College in the Veterans Classic. They cannot escape Chad Venning, can they? The big from who was at St. Bonaventure last year, who really gave them fits. That will be an interesting case study on Friday, I think, VCU against Venning, because one of the big defensive liabilities for this team last year was against true 7-footers, true post players who want to play with their back to the basket. VCU struggled to defend those guys last year, and Venning in those two matchups was certainly a microcosm of that. So we'll see if they're improved defensively in the post on that end on Friday, and what's a huge opportunity for the Rams to get a win early in the year against an ACC opponent that I think should be a top 100 team, Ken Palm, this year. I think it'd be a quad 2 win. That obviously depends on what Boston College does for the rest of the season, but on a neutral court against an ACC school, that's a big opportunity. It sucks to not have Zeb Jackson for a few weeks, but if you can just, win what are some winnable games these next couple of weeks outside of Boston College, which is obviously going to be a challenge up in Annapolis on a neutral floor, and perhaps you could get Zeb back and be feeling really good going into Charleston, which is an enormous opportunity for this team. So thank you so much to everyone for following along and listening. I'm Zach Joachim with the Richmond Times-Dispatch. Like I said, I'll be in Annapolis on Friday, so check out my Twitter and richmond.com for coverage of the Boston College game. And thank you all so much for tuning in. See you next time.